So I've been a personal trainer for about 10 years. During that time, I've had pretty much every role you could expect in the industry, whether that's class instructor, personal trainer, management. During COVID, this is pretty much from November 2020, I decided to open up my own gym, which was based just south of Winchester. I then basically had that for about 2.5 years, decided to sell it off to my business partner so then I could open Hybrid, which I'm the sole director. And I'm not sure if we've spoken about this yet, but Hybrid is actually set to open within the next few days. Hybrid isn't currently a trading company right now, but I am expected to open from Monday. I'm not sure if you're aware of that before, but what I thought it will be is it's been very interesting setting up this business in comparison to my old business, which was obviously functioning for quite a long time. And for me, it's a huge learning curve doing things out on your own as well, especially for obviously the pre-sales that I've been going through for the last kind of 2 months opening Hybrid. So for me, it's basically a concept of how I think exercise should fit into people's lives. And basically what I've done is procure a space where I have the full freedom to implement that, where I don't have to, follow the rules of a large national gym chain. Being a personal trainer, I can basically set up services as they should be. So it just gives me full control over how I think it should be.
Okay, so I wasn't aware of that actually. So that's really interesting to speak to you as the business is literally about to open.
Yeah.
So yeah, how exactly is it different from your running your previous business? If you could just explain a little bit about the differences or the similarities.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the main difference is just size and scale. My previous company was based, it was very rural, which was great in some respects as it was quiet. It was in a very affluent area, which was obviously great for obviously like revenue. Hybrid is in a very, very built up area. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to split away from where I was before, is because within a kilometre radius of here, I have 5,000 houses and people, obviously it works as a law of averages, essentially getting people in. So the big difference that I've been with Hybrid for me is obviously trying to scale a company up. Now, financially and operationally, Hybrid is all on me from starting. So what I'm having to do is phase the open of the business. So initially I'll be starting with a range of group sessions, and then towards February, March, then I'll be opening the gym as an actual gym where people can come in and train. That's when personal training will be introduced. And then later stages in the year, I'm going to then implement spinning. There'll be more holistic sessions. And then I also have relationships with physios going forward too.
Okay, that's amazing. It's like, so how long did it take you to kind of come up with that plan? To like do that phase kind of thing. Was that kind of
Yeah.
a spur of the moment thing, or did you consider like how easy? I know you said it's a lot of pressure for you on your own kind of thing. So is that
Yeah.
what made you make that decision?
Yeah, I mean, personally for me, the type of gym Hybrid I want it to be eventually. Obviously, there's two things there. One, there's the fact of operationally it needs enough staff, it needs enough personal trainers on basically at ground level to operate it. The other thing is obviously a business that size with spinning, gym, classes. There are obviously a significant amount of investment in that, and because this is essentially a new business, the investment that I'm throwing into this, I basically have put enough money in to basically get a product off the ground, something which will start bringing the revenue in. I can polish that off, make it its kind of own like profitable entity, and then I can decide to invest in other areas once the revenue is there. I think with the initial stages of Hybrid, the hope was that I could get investors and come up with the entire revenue in one giant pot. And actually what I think I'm doing now is a much more organic way to do it, where I can look at the standards of one product, polish that off, and then introduce the next one. So although the vision will be realised over a certain amount of time, I am having to do it phased purely for financial aspects.
Mm-hmm. It kind of leads me on to the next question actually that I was going to ask. How is this setting up a business during like the cost of living crisis and the energy crisis and stuff, has it affected anything, or have you kind of like allowed for that and you're able to kind of do it without any sort of, not any
Yeah.
issues, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think, I mean, keeping the whole the whole kind of politics of the energy crisis and the cost of living crisis that we're having, there are still services offered to people on a daily basis, which there are always cheap alternatives for everything. You know, you can go to a very expensive restaurant in London, or you can go to a Pizza Hut. There's so much still breadth of what people can choose, and I think when it comes to fitness, that breadth is there again. People are starting to, and they have been for a long time, but I think it's starting to increase where people are very aware of their health, and any investment they put into health, for a lot of people, is an investment that's definitely worth making. Now, there are obviously cheaper gym chains. There are the large gym chains, Pure Gym, Easy Gym, that do charge a much cheaper cost for their memberships. And for a lot of people, that's a good solution for that if they know what they're doing. But for other people who value their health, yet they don't necessarily have the knowledge to go into a gym and do things themselves, I think people are willing to pay a premium for that kind of service. If people aren't willing to pay that premium, there are obviously loads of other options available. But for hybrid, it's a space where people are going to get that personalised touch when they come in. And I think as a business owner, you can't offer a personalised service at a budget discount price. It doesn't happen that way. You get what you pay for. In terms of the energy, a hybrid is a very energy efficient gym itself. So there's no cardio kit that's plugged in. Everything is either battery operated that can be recharged. There's only about 10 things which are to be plugged in on a daily basis, and all the lighting I've had changed to super efficient LEDs. So even though the business is in its early stages right now, the energy bills that I'm getting through and the energy units, I'm really keeping an eye on my overheads. And that's something that's very important to me as a business owner, is to not let some of the costs behind the scenes kind of spiral out of control. So I did a lot of research on energy costs, different providers, different contract lengths, which initially, felt like a lot to get involved in. But actually now, when the electricity bills come through, it's something that actually is paying dividends back to me.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. And it's good that you've kind of done all that research before, and you're not kind of halfway into your business journey and you're kind of panicking and worrying about that. So that's a really good thing. So what is your demographic like, or what do you think what are you aiming for it to be like? Is it kind of more a community field gym? Are you expecting, older people with more money, or a younger crowd? What are you kind of expecting?
Yeah, again, another good question. And I think if I was just focused on basically just having a gym which had one aspect to it, like it did classes or it didn't do classes and you could just come in for training, I think gyms like that, they do have their own demographic. You kind of get these kind of little ecosystems of people coming in to do different things. I think with hybrid and the size of it, because it is quite a large gym, the demographic is going to be very varied. So I'll be looking at a demographic for personal training, which I imagine is going to be, men and women, probably a 60% women, 40% men, probably between the ages of 40 and kind of 65. That's much more of a demographic who have the money to pay for the higher service. With the group sessions, that's more going to be for kind of probably a 50-50 mix of male and female between the ages of kind of 30 and 50. They're a little bit more energetic. I think the slightly older age group won't necessarily get on with the kind of high energy, loud music group sessions. And then I think people coming in just to train for themselves, I think that's going to be more of a mixed bag of younger people. So anyone from kind of age of 16 is the minimum age up until probably, into their 40s. That's mainly going to be men, I think. That's probably kind of 80 to 90% men, as a lot of guys like to go in and do their own thing. So it's just being aware of the different services I offer and then how I market those services out to the different demographics.
Yeah, I was going to ask actually, how do you market, or how will you market? Is it social media? Is it word of mouth? What is your main form of marketing?
Yeah, so this, I think this has been a bit of a golden question, really. With my previous business, because we were so rural, we didn't have any on-road advertising. It was a business where you would only find out about it by accident if you were just out and about and you didn't have a smartphone. And for me, that was a massive problem, because exposure is obviously the best way to market. That's what marketing is. So when I left that and set up hybrid, I purposefully chose a location it was on the street. That was the most important thing. It was within a built-up area. It was part of a high street. And because of that, a lot of people find out about it organically, where before I basically had to pay a lot of money for the social media aspect, the advertising for it, when I don't have to do that with hybrid. Something that has been just infinitely helpful with marketing hybrid is local Facebook group chats. So small group chats based on, 2,000 members, 5,000 members, 500 members, finding 5 or 6 of these group chats in the local area, and then basically just holding your hand up and saying, hello, I'm the guy opening a gym in West End. You've probably all heard rumours about it. I'm the guy that's opening it. And I remember the first time someone actually asked on a Facebook group chat, they said, oh, is the guy opening the gym in West End on this group chat? And I immediately commented and said, yeah, that's me. I gave a little bit of information. And I remember I think it was a space of 2 hours, I'd received another 150 likes on the Facebook page already, which in terms of paying for advertising, you're never going to see that kind of reaction from it. You're never going to get that kind of response. And it's obviously all free. You have to obviously navigate the rules of the Facebook groups, but that has been probably the single-handed best way to market this company.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. Like, I think people, especially nowadays, they go to social media as the sole form of marketing or whatever, but there's so much like more organic ways to do it, and it's like the 100 likes kind of thing. It gets you a lot more back.
Yeah.
So what do you think has been your biggest achievement? So either as your previous business or like setting up this one, what do you think your biggest achievement has been or your proudest moment?
So, yeah, it's a good question. I mean, obviously hybrid's at the stage now where I'm ready to open. I'm currently taking in revenue for pre-sales, so trials and things, but the business itself, I can't single-handedly look at an area of the business financially and go, that's been a massive success, because I'm not essentially trading yet. I'm not open yet. I think the thing for me is the transition of the gym I owned before and where I am now has been a huge learning curve. There's aspects of my current place that are just infinitely more difficult to sort out. I think probably one of the largest things for me is setting up a business completely on my own. So I've received obviously help from people when it comes to DIY or putting flooring down, but the getting all the kit myself, setting the business up, setting the website up, basically undergoing the whole kind of communicative program with prospective members coming into it. All of that has been off me. I don't have a business advisor. I don't have anyone kind of on the sidelines telling me what to do. For me, it's been a learning curve, and I've kind of achieved it myself really just through learning things. And for me, that's also important to recognise, because when businesses scale, a lot of the times they scale with a lot of problems. You can never scale a business and it be easy. It's always going to be this kind of tumultuous process. And for me, the fact that I've gotten hybrid to where it is now is probably a good sign to say that once in 2-3 years time, when this business is profitable and I'm starting to think about opening the next hybrid, that's basically a key skill that I can just apply to the next one as well.
Hmm.
So the thing I'm probably most proud of is the fact that I've pretty much done this from my own back. And I know that sounds like a certain amount of back patting that I'm doing here, but
No, it's like it's something to be proud of, definitely. I think because if you have done it on your own, it's a big thing to kind of get to grips with like all the little parts that go into running a business. With your premises, was it already a gym that you kind of took over, or was you had to like make it into a gym? Is it?
yeah. So
Yeah.
it used to be a hardware store.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, and they left about 2.5 years ago. So the property had been empty for 2.5 years, and it had been the kind of target for a lot of vandalism. So there were broken windows. This building is known very locally. Everyone's aware of it as the old InXS building. That was the company that was in there before. And from what I've heard, multiple people and gym chains have tried to procure this site for their own gyms. So for me, coming in here with the budget that I have, which is all my money, there's no investment into it. coming into here and basically transforming this into a gym has been honestly a incredibly difficult experience. In regards to the red tape that you have to jump through for these, not only with the local council, but obviously making it safe for fire, making it, operationally, it's been very difficult to set it up. There's obviously bathrooms, there's kit that needs to be maintained. So it's been a very, very difficult process turning into what it is. It wasn't a gym before, and I can't see how they're going to ever turn it back into retail now. I think it's got to stay as a gym as long as it's standing, really.
Yeah. Oh yeah. One of my next questions was going to be, what is your biggest struggle? So like, out of all of that, if you could pick one thing, what do you think has been the hardest thing? Is it kind of
Yeah.
getting money together? Is it kind of literally like transforming it into the gym itself, or yeah?
Yeah, that's another good question. I think personally, for me, there hasn't probably been one single aspect of setting this up which has been the easier part of things. I think since I've set this up, a few people have approached me and basically asked, "How have you done this?" They've seen the size of the place and they see the scale at which I'm operating, and a few people have come down to kind of ask me, they would love to do the same thing. How did I start on it? And I think the one thing that you have to be very good at is problem solving, and problem solving on a budget and on a time scale at the same time. And you have to, from what I've learned at least, you have to be incredibly resilient to failure coming along time and time again. When you set up a business, you are going to fail 1,000 times before it's successful. And there are so many things around this whole product so far which have not gone to plan, which if I could run them again, I would have changed massively what I was hoping to do. I think that the single hardest thing the single most stressful thing is I've chosen to import all of the kit and the flooring myself. And that's a process which takes a very long time, is very expensive, and there are a huge amount of uncertainties. And there are uncertainties that if you call them wrong, you're kind of done. You've just wasted a lot of money, and there's nowhere really to go with that. Luckily, everything's gone pretty well with it so far. But for me, it's been the scheduling, the logistics of kit and flooring and everything around that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we touched on this a little bit earlier, but your plans for the future. So like, what are you most excited about? Do you have plans to expand? I know you mentioned that you were hopefully going to open up other hybrid gym chains. So
Yeah.
like, yeah, what are your plans for like the next year, the next 5 years, that kind of thing?
Yeah, good question. So initially being in the early stages of the business, I can have all these plans to go forward, to expand, to scale, to open new hybrids. What my current goal is obviously going to be around stabilizing this business. What I need to do is basically come up with a format here, which is going to essentially be copy and pastable across to other businesses in the future. So I really want this business to be scalable from the outset. So there's a lot to do from the start, on making this basically a format that can be, I can take to other places. The challenging thing for me is that because this is operationally on me and it's financially on me, I have a huge vested interest in the success of this place. So when I come to opening other hybrids, I will then be in the process of employing managers to look after a place. And for me, investment in a job and treating aspects of that job very, very like precisely for success is something which is going to be hard to get in people which they're not necessarily as financially invested as I am into it. So let's say 5 years down the line, I'm looking to open up another hybrid, let's say in a borough in London somewhere. What I will want to do is meet an individual with the drive like myself and have them invest in the business in some small part and get basically them to be the person who is driving this and to be the person at the front of it and wanting that success for it. And I think that's kind of the way that I would like to go eventually. Obviously, there's so many businesses which are franchisable, but I think the key to getting a good franchise is finding an individual who buys into a concept and is looking to take that concept for their own success as much as the business. So that's probably a longer term goal for me, but something that's, down the pipeline a bit further.
Amazing. I think we touched on the next question as well a little bit. So if you could give somebody else some advice, like if they were starting up their own business, what do you think you'd say to them?
Yeah. Um, yeah. It's my honest answer to that is that I would ask anyone to be very critical of themselves of whether they're ready to do this. Because from what I have seen, social media is propagating this idea that having your own business is this brilliant thing where you can work from anywhere in the world, you can be earning 5 figures a month from it. It's really simple. You don't have to get down and dirty. You can basically be someone that's just moving pieces on a chessboard and make a lot of money from it. And I honestly think that's just a complete lie that people are telling to make a quick buck from people. I think business is messy. It's agonizing. It's fraught with failure. It can reduce aspects of your life which you enjoy pretty much to nothing, essentially. I mean, with setting hybrid up, I've obviously it's very financially expensive. You see people less. You wake up in the middle of the night thinking about things that you can't get back to sleep. It's a really, really challenging process to keep going. I would initially ask someone who's looking to set up their own business, are you willing to put yourself through that? It's not going to be easy. It's going to be really, really challenging on your social life. Is that the kind of thing that you want for yourself? Why are you doing this? And it's something, Chloe, that I ask myself daily why I've actually decided to do all this. And, you know, to not get morbid about it, but in 70 years, I probably won't be on this earth anymore. So for the time that I'm here, you know, screw it, let's do it.
Yeah,
Let's take a
definitely.
risk on this business and see how it goes.
Yeah. I think that's really good advice though, because a lot of the time, people say the opposite and they're like, oh, just go for it, just do it. But I think that's really practical advice that you've given. And it's kind of like you do really have to think about how running a business will fit into your life and your other commitments and stuff like that.
Hmm.
But no, definitely. So with all that in mind, like, why do you think it's better to support, say, a small business rather than a bigger chain?
Yeah. Well, I think that there are the obvious reasons that bigger chains are supported by shareholders and CEOs and people you're never going to meet and people who are very wealthy anyway. And to those people, the success of one individual in a gym doesn't matter to them. With me, every single member who walks through the door here is going to be, they're going to be taken as an individual. I'll get to know those people. I'll get to know their progress over time and, you know, the difficulties in their life, the barriers that prevent them from succeeding. And I can be part of that journey with them. The larger companies don't offer this. And as much as the advertising budgets of these larger companies will tell people, they don't provide a product which a lot of people find valuable. They offer a space and basically they offer, you know, an opportunity to go in and do your own thing. But exercise is difficult. It doesn't, for some people, it's not enjoyable. For some people, they don't know what they're doing. For a lot of people, it kind of scares them. It's an intimidating environment. And basically, that's what the larger gym chains will offer people. It's all of those things put in a product for a very cheap price. And smaller businesses, they operate with people, which I think is what makes anything in our lives worth living, to be honest. It's the people around you. It's not the products that you buy, but it's the experiences that you can make with people that make us happy. And that's what small businesses do. They put an individual in front of you and they put assistants in front of you and they solve problems that way in the way that large businesses can't.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, it's like that community feel as well, and kind of like feeling like you're together, I guess, is good as well. Like the gym, the high street gyms can be a bit faceless, and you don't feel like you're getting that personal touch. So no, I totally agree with that. And then finally, I think we touched on this a little bit as well previously, but if you could just pick one thing, if you could go back to the start of your business journey, what do you think you'd change?
If we're It's a very good question. I know you sent me these through initially, and I read that one, but now you're asking me it here.
No pressure.
Yeah. If I'm honest, I don't think there's anything that I would change about the conception of hybrid and then my previous company. Everything has been a learning curve. And I think if I'm going to start pinpointing areas where I failed or where things went wrong, I think the fact that they did go wrong was required to steer me in a better direction.
Mhm.
I almost think if I'd made one huge mistake and hybrid wasn't opening and the whole project was just, on the ground, that's when I would have regrets about how I did things. But currently, I think failing and realizing failure and identifying it is probably the most organic way to success. So for me, there's nothing I'd really change at this point. Everything's looking good with the amount of trial bookings that I'm getting in, the pre-sales. So I genuinely wouldn't change anything up until this point.
Okay. Yeah, that's amazing. That's really, really good. And I like the way that you kind of refer to stuff as like a learning curve, because obviously when you're setting up a business, there are going to be mistakes. Things are not going to work out always the way that you kind of planned them. But yeah, that's a really great way to look at it. So thank you.
Just, there's just as a kind of side note, but
Hmm.
there's a really good motivational talk. I can't remember the guy who says it, and he basically and this is going to sound strange, but he basically refers to Super Mario the game,
Yeah.
and he says that life is basically that you play the game and you fail a level. If when in life we don't do that. In life we're so afraid of failing, we just don't play the game at all.
Yeah.
When actually we should play life more like Super Mario, where you do things, you fail, you learn from it, you try again, you do things, you fail, you learn from it. And that's basically how you progress through life. It's that constant failing, getting up, learning from it, and then moving to the next thing. And if people are so blinded by that fear of failing, even on the first step, you're never going to be successful. Never.
Mhm. That's a really good analogy. I love that. That's I've never
Yeah,
thought
I,
of it like
I
that.
don't know how well known that speech is, but it was something that I watched, and when something just clicks in your head and you think, wow, that's a brilliant way of looking at things.
Yeah, definitely. No, that's a really good, not even just for business, but life in general, like you said, that's a really good way of looking
Yeah,
at it.
yeah.
But yeah, definitely.